So, Black Panther answers the most pressing question of our time. Is there anyone hotter than Michael B. Jordan? I'll wait. I mean, seriously, when the first few pictures and the teaser came out with Michael, you know, and that hair thing that he has, um, I was one of those people. I sat down there and I was like, when did Chronicle get hot? What's going on with Johnny Storm? All right, okay, maybe I should grow like a hair thing. Who knows? Then, of course, the head of the Jabari tribe came out, and the entire female population went like, fiber, yes, cardboard, no. So, yeah, I guess that answers that question. I left IMAX with feelings in my stomach, and it wasn't because, you know, I needed coffee or something like that. It was because this was a legitimately good movie. I went in there hoping to get a strong comic to screen adaptation kind of vibe. I was also hoping to get something that wasn't just entertaining but inspiring, and I felt I left there feeling very emotional in my stomach. It was weird. And I say that because, you know, I didn't exactly go to Black Panther, you know, feeling woke. I've been on this planet long enough to see, for example, Benjamin Sisko. Benjamin Sisko was the first brown captain commander type in the Star Trek universe. You know, and he was like a single father who had like a young male son that he had to groom, and he still had to deal with, you know, the Bajorans and the Cardassians. So for me, the idea of seeing a black main character who is good, it's not new for me. So I didn't walk inside there being like, this is the liberation. I walked inside there as like, you know, please let me see a really good comic book movie. Because I love comics. I know a lot of people went to see it and they were like, I don't really care for comics, but this is really like, you know, a strong, empowering film, and I totally am going to go there for that. No. Y'all are clogging up my space in IMAX, just saying. I will say, even though, you know, I had all my feelings and thoughts going into the film, when I walked out, I was so emotional. And honestly, even the pacing of it worked for me. I know some people was like, well, it was a little too slow, but for me, I was glad with the pacing. I think for me, Black Panther is this year's Wonder Woman, in that the characters, you know, the characters are expanded on first, then you get moments of action, and then there's like a self-actualization finish to the thing. You know, it's amazing to me that, you know, suddenly American producers are like, we should have more women and brown people direct superhero characters in Star Wars. All right, you know, huzzah, America, huzzah. Black Panther first appeared on the cover of Fantastic Four in July 1966. Which is like about 3 or 4 months before the American Black Panther Party came out, which was like October 1966. There is such a thing called coincidence. These things do happen. Plot twist, T'Challa was actually Daredevil once. Yeah, that happened. He took over for Matt Murdock for a time in Hell's Kitchen, so he's all over the place. Marvel Studios has always tried to be true to their comic book origins, their comic book histories. That said, they aren't shy to make this cinematic universe its own thing. The reason why we're fine with all of that as comic book goods, is because there's enough of a thread to tie everything together. But I think Black Panther was the film that showed it the most, because there is a great deal of separation from the comics. To get what I mean, we have to go back a few movies. Further than that. In the comics, Ulysses Klaue lost his arm in a fight with young T'Challa. In the movies, he lost his arm because of Ultron.
Target. I'm sorry. I'm sure that's going to be okay.
And then in Captain America Civil War, it was Zemo who was responsible for King T'Chaka dying. When in fact, in the comics, it's Ulysses Klaue who killed King T'Chaka. So you have that bit of a split happening right there. Going into this film, I suspected that it would have been like a Thor and Loki in Africa kind of vibe. And again, that's because of how it deviated from the comics a little bit. But it's not a cut and paste scene. You got touch points, I feel like that was inspired by a few things, but it's not the thing. Like, there is that Bond element, but it's not a Bond movie, stuff like that. Funny enough, though, in terms of the Thor and Loki kind of thing, there is a character in the Black Panther comics called White Wolf, and White Wolf is T'Challa's adopted brother. There's a Caucasian kid whose his family's crashed, their plane crashed into Wakanda, the family died, and King T'Chaka took this little boy and raised him as his own, and he became like really powerful and things like that. And he and T'Challa eventually had like a brotherly spat. So that whole Odin, Thor, Loki vibe is there in the comics. In the film, it's there, but it's kind of a little different, and when you go see it, you'll understand why. Black Panther as a film is visually rich, and I don't just mean Wakanda, even things like South Korea. South Korea looks so stunning and beautiful. Black Panther is also socially relevant. I mean, hearing Wakanda talk about immigrants and keeping their borders closed was something that was kind of chuckle-worthy for me. I think we tend to forget that Wakanda is, well, they really are an isolationist state. I don't know if Wakanda Forever, and this is going to sound a little controversial, but I don't know if Wakanda Forever is the equivalent of America First, that kind of vibe. But they really are about, look, we know what the kind of dramas and stuff that we have to make sure that we're taken care of and all this kind of thing before we could even deal with the world at large. So, they didn't shy away from that. Ryan Coogler didn't shy away from these kinds of topics. The way how they used vibranium in this film is so utterly satisfying. I was having a conversation with a new friend of mine, and she was saying that the idea of vibranium, as opposed to how it deals with like real world science, was something that was jarring for her. My response to that is that perhaps maybe the world has not caught up to Wakandan tech. It's kind of like in Star Trek. The scientific thoughts that were pushed on that show was not something that 1960s America was doing at the time, but the world eventually caught up to Roddenberry's vision. And I feel that's the same process here with Wakanda and vibranium tech. If it's one thing that always grinds my gears about a Marvel movie, is their villains. I think for me, in terms of villains, I count Loki, obviously. Loki, Alexander Pierce, Vulture, Killmonger, and Klaue as some of their best villains. Klaue has a surprising level of humor to him. Especially for a guy whose father, was a Nazi war criminal. He wasn't over the top, even with like his mixtape and his other things that he was talking about. Again, spoilers. Anyhow, back to Killmonger. His motivations as a villain was understandable. He is the living embodiment of the phrase "error of your ways." And that harbored some pretty deep resentment. So as an adult, even though he got his way back to Wakanda, he always was a thorn in T'Challa's side. Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of it brought a sort of richness to on screen as Killmonger. And even though you know that his motivations will end up being hazardous, you can still get it. You can still get behind it. Letitia Wright's portrayal of Shuri is phenomenal. This is one of those things where you should bring your little daughter, your little child to see the film, if for no other reason than Shuri. Shuri is T'Challa's younger sister. She is the head of the Wakandan design group. Like, what? Yes? This is great. In the comics, T'Challa gets really badly injured and she becomes the Black Panther. So I kind of wonder what they will do later on, in the film franchise. T'Challa and Shuri's sibling relationship was something that I could feel. Here's the thing, I'm an only child, right? Mostly. But at the same point in time, I could still feel that emotion, like the chemistry that the two of them had on screen. I could still feel it and I could still go along with it. Sidebar, I've never actively felt like I needed to wave my half Guyanese flag until now, so 10 points Letitia. Speaking of flags, Tobagonian-born Winston Duke, listen. M'Baku could have been very tricky to play, because in the comics he's known as Man-Ape, not Gorilla Man, okay? He is Man-Ape. He gets his superhuman strength from the white gorilla. And he's in the comics, he's not really a big fan of T'Challa. But in the film, M'Baku is like this strong, competent, well-rounded character. I got a few friends of mine who say that, M'Baku actually steals the spotlight from T'Challa. I leave that up to you to figure out where you stand on that. But Mr. Winston Duke gave M'Baku life and comedic timing, which again didn't feel forced. It's also good to note that M'Baku will return for Avengers Infinity War. Danny Guerrero as Okoye is life. I mean, the Dora Milaje on the whole is life, but Okoye is extra life. Lupita as Nakia is, for me, the black female Bond that everyone hopes for. Yeah, her levels as spy, ex-girlfriend, confidant, her trying to figure out her place, not just in Wakanda, but in the world. I liked it. I liked it a great deal. And as for Chadwick Boseman, the Panther himself, he is well suited for the role. It was refreshing to see his relationship with the woman around him. Queen Angela Bassett, wins, at all things. I liked it. I would have loved to have seen a lot more from Ramonda. Okay, the generic African accent on some of the characters, I could do without. It's funny. Okay, I'm going to stop now. It's funny because, when X-Men first came out in 2000, the first one had Halle Berry doing a kind of quasi-African-y accent. Look, you can't do this alone, and everybody's like, okay, no. And so thankfully by X-Men 2 and the other film that we don't talk about, she was like full on Storm is American. In Black Panther, some of the characters and their nondescript African accent was a little bit jarring. Like, for example, Forrest Whitaker and even Queen Angela, Angela Bassett's "It Is Your Time." I'm not sure how I felt about that. And I still am trying to figure out what on earth is a Black Panther. I mean, Forrest, I don't know, you know. And this is a guy who played The Last King of Scotland, which is about Idi Amin. So he knows how to play accents. I just don't know what, I was jarring. Funny enough, the Caribbean contingent, which is Letitia and Winston, and a few of the African actors, and I say African, actors had it on point. So like Danny Guerrero, she was born in the US, but she lived in Zimbabwe, and Lupita is Kenyan American. Chadwick Boseman, however, Chadwick must stop, cease, and desist from speaking American ever again. Like, I mean, like when I hear him in interviews and he's like, well, you know, the Black Panthers, I'm like, what is that? That's, ugh. I would not scream cultural appropriation if he decided to change his accent forever. Overall, the film is really great. It has two fantastic soundtracks that you must get your hands on. Ryan Coogler went above and beyond, I think, with this film. Which, by the way, I feel like for those people who are new to Ryan Coogler, you should go back and watch like Fruitvale Station and maybe even Taking Creed, so you can see his style and how he is. And finally, I don't know why I have to say this, after what, 10, 11 years of Marvel movies, do stay to the end. You've already stayed in the film, you know, in your seats for this long. Stay to the end. It's just like 10 minutes of credits. Why do I have to keep shouting from my seat, where are you idiots going? Sit down. Watch the two after credit scenes. And then when you finish watching it, come and find me and let's talk about that character showing up and the name that they gave that character, because that, again, in terms of comics versus movies, that's an entire split. Should you go to see it? I believe so, yes. I sat down in IMAX and got that whole immersive experience, so you know me, I'm gonna go back and again and also again for reasons. Should you dress up? By all means, go right ahead, go to town, have fun, do whatever. And if you happen to be cream colored, or if you are East Indian or whatever, dress up too now. What is this nonsense? I would appreciate if you would do some more comic book cosplay type some things, because, you know, reasons, but dress up, you know. So that's our review. So huzzah to that. Wakanda forever. Everybody say kick it, kick it.